Okay, the second upgrade for the model 2125 HTP Clear 2-inch gold hand dredge will be the clamping collar upgrade. And we're going to show how easy it is to install that. What we'll need is a nut driver or a screwdriver. A nut driver is better because chances of it slipping off are a lot less. So we'll use a nut driver, unscrew the clamp, open the clamp up as far as we can, because the clamping collar is thick enough that you're going to need probably just about the highest adjustment you can go with the clamp in order for it to fit under there in between the bellows. Okay, now what we want to do before we install it is we want to make sure that when the bellows is on there, this clamping collar is open. It has to be open so that when it sits on top of the bellows, it's got a gap of about that much, so that when you start to close the hose clamp, that will force that to close. And what that will do is that will create a seal with pressure, compression, a compression seal. Alright, now the reason we're putting the clamping collar on there is because when this hose clamp sits on there, it's got the worm gear housing. And so the worm gear housing, it sits below the band. So what happens is when that comes in contact with here, it's the first point of contact. So when you start tightening up the band, that worm gear housing comes in contact with the body first, and the tightness hose clamp up sufficiently enough around here to hold the bellows to the body, it puts a flat spot right here. Well, if you over tighten it, you could not only put a flat spot there, but you could like crimp the plastic and pop, maybe even break it. And also you got to be careful. So that is what this upgrade is for. This upgrade is to make it foolproof so that there's no way you can over tighten it enough to make anything like that happen. So anyway, we got the hose clamp, put that on there. We got the clamping collar, we're going to put that on there. Now we're going to fit the bellows to the body. Okay, and let's see, we're going to try to line up the clamp on the handle. Line that up so it's perpendicular to the discharge port, like that. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we are going to bring up the clamping collar over the bellows. First thing we want to do is we want to make sure that the bellows is on there all the way, because we don't want to try to tighten the clamp without the bellows being on there. So we're going to twist it, make sure it's seated on there. Look at it all the way around, make sure it's seated, because there's a rim right here on the pump body, and so you can actually push the lip of the bellows all the way down to sit on top of that rim. Okay. Sure. Alright. Okay, so that looks good. Alright, now what we're going to do is put this clamping collar on here. There's the seam. Okay, got that on there. We're going to twist it a little bit to the right. The reason we're going to twist it a little bit to the right is because we have this portion of the hose clamp band where there's no serrations on it that the worm gear uses to close the clamp. So what we want to do is we want to have it far enough over there that when we start to close the hose clamp, it can close that gap right there without interference from the serrations in the band. Okay, so let's get the clamp started. Now the band and the clamping collar, they're roughly the same width. So what we're going to want to do, well, we'll keep our glasses from falling off. So what we're going to want to do is we are going to want to keep the band centered on top of the clamping collar. That's pretty good. Feel it. Make sure that it's sitting on top of the clamping collar evenly all the way around. Before you tighten it, make sure that the bellows is sitting on top of the rim. Okay, hold the bellows to the pump body and start tightening. Keep tightening until the ends of the clamping collar come in contact with each other. Once that happens, it's as tight as it needs to be. And it will hold the bellows on there and prevent damage to the pump body from the worm gear housing. And that's the two upgrades. T-handle and the clamping collar. Now we're ready to go. Put that on. Put that back on. We're ready to go. There you go. Model 2125 HDP Clear 2-inch gold hand dredge from Golden Sniffer Products.